But anyway, with that, I'm delighted to introduce Bill Achord, and he's the founder and president of the Nebraska Hemp Association, and Donna Gonzales, who's been coming to coffee for a while, and she's a founding partner of Emris International. And with that, I'll turn it over to them. Thank you for being here.
Turn myself on here. Thank you all for coming, and Steve, thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate it, and appreciate your doing this. It's big. A caveat of what Steve just said: don't risk it. And the reason I say that is that the state, with regulations that will be in place hopefully in a month or two, when the USDA gets their regulations on hemp done, the Nebraska Department of Ag has said they're basically going to copy theirs with maybe a few changes. But anybody that that wants to transport industrial hemp will have to have documentation. So that the law enforcement is not going to test, or if they do, they're going to charge you for it. And what they're going to do is, you don't have documentation, they're going to arrest you. So that's the way it's going to be. Okay, right now there's a limbo area, but shortly, if you're going to transport hemp, and you can transport it across all state lines, that's part of the federal Farm Bill, 18 Farm Bill. Even through South Dakota, whose governor has said it's illegal there, they can't do anything with hemp in South Dakota. They can't stop legitimate industrial hemp transportation through there, but you have to have documentation. So today we're mostly going to talk about CBD. Donna and I are both involved with the product, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly we just want to talk about the entrepreneurial opportunities with hemp, and especially CBD, because it's huge and getting huger, as some say, right? First, just a brief bio on me. I was born and raised on a small dryland farm in Franklin County, and I have a special place in my heart for small dryland farms, and our family farms are dying at about 400 to 500 a year. And I really believe that hemp, I got involved in this in 2014 when the first Farm Bill came out and our first legislation in Nebraska happened, because I think it has the opportunity to help keep families on the farm and help small rural Main Street thrive again. Okay, there's so many uses for industrial hemp, and there's so much opportunity for even low tech. There's a lot of high tech stuff like gasoline, big gas mill that will produce hemp gas and hemp diesel and all sorts of things. But there's a lot of low tech things that can be done in just little mom and pop businesses in Main Street, rural Nebraska. That I'm pretty excited about that. I like to do interactive presentation. Public speaking is not one of my virtues or one of my fortes. So I appreciate it. Anytime you have questions, feel free to ask me. We're a little limited on time, so I'll try to give you a short answer, and then later, when we have our question and answer period, we can go into more depth if you want to. But please feel free to ask, and I'll even ask you a few questions. In the beginning, I want to ask you, do you all fully understand the difference between hemp, industrial hemp, and marijuana? Anybody that doesn't fully understand the difference? Okay, good. It's really important that you understand it is an arbitrary definition, okay? But set by the government, the legality of it, okay? And basically, the simple answer is marijuana, of course, you use to get high. Hemp, you use to make over 50,000 different products. It's not psychotropic. It doesn't get you high, because the THC, which is the cannabinoid that makes you high, isn't in there. There's over 100 different cannabinoids, okay, in cannabis, all right? And so industrial hemp has a very low concentration of THC, all right? So, and the government says that any industrial hemp plant is legally called hemp if it has less than 0.3% dry weight THC, less than 0.3. Now that was arbitrarily set. You could set 5% because nobody would smoke 5 anyway. They're smoking 25, 30, 35% now. I mean, it's amazing. It's just crazy, you know. And while I'm not opposed to medical marijuana or even rec, I'm not here to promote that, and I don't promote it because I'm focused on industrial hemp, and they're two very different. And same plant, of course, but it grows very differently, and it's engineered very differently. Okay, and it's very easy to tell apart, except perhaps for the big flowering CBD plants. You have to have a pretty trained eye to be able to tell the difference between that. Now, industrial hemp is grown in monoculture like corn, and they get, a dual crop, which is seed and fiber variety together, is about 8 to 10 feet tall maybe. They go through and combine the seed first, cut the stalk later for fiber. A fiber plant is taller than that. All fiber is about, anywhere 10 to 15 feet in monoculture again. The CBD plant is planted, the others are planted very close to each other, a couple inches, but CBD plant is generally planted in 4 by 4 foot or 5 by 5 foot squares. Every 5 foot and 5 foot rows. And it grows big and bushy, more like what a marijuana plant looks like. And to the trained eye, it has the flowers, but the flowers are different, and the resin is different. And if you've ever been in a grow house, I've been in some in Colorado. Some of them are really colorful, the marijuana plants. So there is a difference, even what they look like. But for the green and the seeds, law enforcement, for the green leaves and the seeds, law enforcement cannot tell the difference. Now, stalks of either one have never been illegal, okay? Because they don't have any THC in them. So marijuana stalks are just as legal as hemp stalks. Been transported in the States for years. Guy in Plattsmouth gets them out of Colorado and processes them into fiber. So that's the difference. I want to talk just a little bit about the opportunities here. This first handout that I gave you, I'll go through some of these. In the Rolling Stone, it was reported that the CBD market, it's been reported the CBD market will hit 22 billion with a B by 2022. Just CBD will be a $22 billion industry. Now, back in 1936, it was predicted that hemp in 1938 would be a $1 billion industry. Okay? Didn't happen. Now, that would have been the first industry to hit $1 billion, the first crop and industry to hit $1 billion. Who knows why it didn't happen? In 1930, I'll tell you, 1937, William Randolph Hearst, DuPont, other big corporations came down and basically made hemp illegal with marijuana. And that was, maybe their reasons for making marijuana were justifiable. Their reasons for making hemp were simply greed, okay? Andrew Mellon, who was the Secretary of State for the United States, owned a controlling interest in nylon in DuPont. And DuPont, and based on his actions, he was one of the main instigators of why hemp was put in with marijuana to be made illegal. Okay, and there's a sordid history of all that. It was racist, and there's all you can read about it. It was a terrible time in our country. And finally, now with the Farm Bill, hemp has been taken off the Schedule 1. A lot of people think the Farm Bill made it legal. It really didn't. It left that up to the states, okay? It did make it a commodity crop, took it off Schedule 1. And by the way, a couple of days ago, DEA took hemp off of Schedule 1. They hadn't done that yet. That's huge, okay? So that, the DEA now is not going to be pursuing hemp because it's been a problem in Colorado for quite a few years now, because the DEA has threatened to do certain things, and they haven't because of Colorado's constitution. And then on the back of this first one I gave you on the Rolling Stone, I just wanted to share this with you to give you an idea. These are just sort of excerpts from this Hemp Today, and look at the international flavor of all of this. There's Poland, there's Uruguay. There's a lot going on in Uruguay. Hemp, of course, hemp in China is huge. Another thing too, mentioning China reminds me, one of the wonderful things about hemp is that we're going to be growing it here. America has been the top buyer of hemp products from around the world, but we haven't grown it here. So now when we grow it here, we're going to be using it here. There will be no trade issues. Think about that, okay? Hemp will never be a trade issue, will never be politicized that way, because we'll grow it and use it here, okay? Now, just briefly, there's some facts here on this green sheet. You can do it at your own leisure. On the back of that, it's hemp looks like this, just a thing from Tennessee hemp. Hemp's Ford car. Henry Ford wanted hemp to be the gasoline of America, but J.D. Rockefeller had oil, so oil won. Rudolph Diesel made his diesel engines using hemp diesel. There's all sorts of products here. The cotton industry, hemp versus cotton, you can see that there. It's incredible. Half the poisons put on an agricultural crop in this country are put on cotton to kill the boll weevil. And hemp has its own insecticide in it. So gas, there's a bunch of these are different products. I'm just about done here because I know it's taking some time here. I like the one about the bees. The bees are dying. And look at the plastic bottle there. A hemp plastic bottle will totally disintegrate within 80 days. Now think about how that would help the oceans and help our environment and our landfills if our plastic bottles disintegrated within 80 days. They're totally biodegradable, okay? And right now they're so expensive, but when we start growing more hemp here and when our markets develop and our processing develops, and that's where there's going to be tremendous opportunity in processing and investment in processing, but even getting into some form of processing, then we will be able to do all these things. Hemp detoxifies the soil. You see that one down there on the right. And in fact, it's been planted, I don't know if you know this, but at Chernobyl and Fukushima, they've planted hemp all the way around those nuclear sites because it cleans the air, it cleans the water, and it cleans the soil. Okay, I think that's pretty amazing stuff. And then the very back one, everything plastic can be made from hemp. Now, that's an incredible statement, but it's true. Yes.
So I got a quick question. If I've got farm ground and I want to grow hemp, is there a market for it right now? I mean,
not yet.
Okay, so I wouldn't be able to sell it.
Right.
And then how much retrofitting?
Well, there is in Colorado, but and a few other places, but you're going to have to spend a little extra on transportation.
Okay.
Costs.
And then how much machinery upgrades or changes does a typical farmer that's growing corn now need to make to plant it and harvest it?
For a dual crop and fiber, and dual crop's the most popular because the seed, the grain is so is such a good commodity and sells so easily, and it's easy to transport. You can just raise the headers on a combine and cut it, and then you use a sickle cutter to cut. So most farmers have the equipment they need, and then you bale it, you dry it and bale it. There are decorticators. That's a machine that separates the fiber from the hurd. The inside of the stalk is called the hurd. And there are some small ones that aren't too expensive. So that would be a processing procedure. We need to develop our markets, and they will develop, but it's going to take a little time. We're telling farmers, don't plant too much right now. Just plant 5 to 10 acres, learn about the plant, and make sure you got your equipment. The equipment does have to be sharpened and maintenance because it's a tough fiber, it's a tough plant.
I can't tell about, if I have some farm ground, do I have to have a license to grow it?
You do, you have to make an application for a permit, and then you're given a permit to grow it. Yep.
Am I limited to how much I can grow them?
Hopefully not, and hopefully they won't. This year the growth was based on the 2014 Farm Bill, the pilot studies, because they didn't have the rules and regs for the new 2018 Farm Bill. There were 176 applicants. The Department of Agriculture, let me see if I can say that with more disdain. The Department of Agriculture, that's better, gave out 10 permits.
The whole state?
The whole state. Ridiculous, just ridiculous. They've said they will not limit it next year. We're hoping that they're being honest about that. But they've slow-played it. The governor has slow-played it. He signed it, but he slow-played it all along. And I don't understand, well, I think I do understand why, but I won't get into that. Yes. And then over here, I'll come back.
What are like because you mentioned plastics, I mean, what about like medical, anything in that industry as far as like all the scanning equipment or just giant equipment like that, but what about also internal and external, like I'm thinking prosthetic type stuff, like any medical, like
Yeah.
wouldn't that totally destabilize that? Because if hemp seems safer, a little less toxic potentially, especially in the human body, and strong enough to be a car, I mean.
Yes.
Are you
That
fighting those
Henry
problems?
Ford took a sledgehammer to. There's a video of it, and the sledgehammer bounced off the fender, it didn't even dent it. Yeah, that's potential. I mean, almost everything in our society can be made from hemp. Strong plastic, very strong.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, that's probably some of the money that's backing, like, why they don't want to
That's some of it.
totally destroy a lot of those
It,
movement.
it is a big threat to a lot of industries. Right. Over here, and then I'll come back.
That's kind of a question I'm confused about. Where the bottles are biodegradable in 80 days.
Mhm.
Okay, but if I've got a plastic bottle of something sitting on my counter, or is it only when it hits the landfill or something?
Right, and the sun. And,
Just like if I'm gonna do a compost pile.
right, exactly. Yeah, no, yeah, they'll last a long time on the shelf.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good on the shelf. And then over here.
Now, there are some processing plants in the works that is kind of waiting to find out what's happening, right here in Nebraska, my understanding.
They're waiting.
Okay.
They're waiting to see how much we can start growing and how soon, because they will develop. Who knows when, but yeah, they are waiting, and I'm trying to with the Nebraska Hemp Association. I'm trying to get local businesses involved in processing. There's a lot of them from outside the state that want to jump in and do that, and they're going to. But I've really focused on trying to get local businesses and local investors to try and keep it in Nebraska as much as possible, keep that money in Nebraska. Otherwise they're going to do a lot of jobs, and it's all good, the process, but a lot of that money is going to be going out of the state. I'd like to keep as much as possible in the state. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, in your panel here, it says that it adds nitrogen to the soil.
Yes.
I mean, soybeans add nitrogen to the soil as
Yes.
well. So, does this crop need to be rotated
No.
out?
No. You could plant it and plant it and plant it. And the leaves, the fiber in the dual crops, the leaves will fall to the ground before you can sickle cut it or whatever, and those will go into the ground and like compost. And the roots then will also provide that. So no, you don't have to rotate it. It's amazing.
Is it difficult to plant back over once you harvested?
Say that again.
Is it difficult to plant back over?
No.
With the residue that's left, is the roots?
No, you can do minimum tillage. The roots will disintegrate.
Have you contacted the brown sheep company in Mitchell about possible use, because
No.
they do yarn, and that is a huge up and coming in the yarn world, yarn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What's the name of the company?
brown sheep company.
Brown Sheep?
Mhm.
Brown Sheep. Okay, good. As a kind of a segue here, I don't know if you know, but Donna's going to talk about the endocannabinoid system and CBD. Do you know that the human body produces cannabinoids, makes them? They're the very same molecule as what the plant. The plant, they're called phytocannabinoids. The human body produces endocannabinoids. In fact, all mammals produce endocannabinoids in their body. And when a nursing mammal mother is nursing the infant, a little extra THC kicks into that milk to stimulate the baby's appetite. Isn't that amazing? I think it's amazing.
That is amazing. I'm just going to share your mic with you.
Oh,
Keep that. We'll just pass it back and forth.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, you want me to stand up?
Yeah. Give me my support system. Okay, see if we can hear. Okay. I had passed out 2 handouts. One is hemp versus marijuana handout. I'm just going to talk just a little bit about that first, because a lot of times when you say CBD oil, a lot of people think of the THC or the marijuana, the psychoactive part. So that handout explains a little bit better about that.
I don't know.
I think we need to, yeah.
Oh.
We didn't get it.
Um,
You guys, oh, I thought you guys.
Oh, just that side of the room didn't get any yet.
Oh, over there.
Yeah. So that describes the products that are made out of hemp. As Bill already described a lot of the products, and then CBD oil is one of them. And hemp being 0.3 would be the legal limit that they have set. So I have partnered actually with a company that has CBD oil that actually has the CO2 extraction method, so that even that 0.3 is taken out of that CBD oil. However, the rest of the plant still remains in there, and so I wanted to describe that just a little bit before we got into the endocannabinoid system, because it makes a difference to have the full spectrum of the plant in your system. So the endocannabinoid system, every mammal has one, and there's not a lot of information that's published about that, but it affects things like your sleep, your relaxation, your mood, and even your cognitive function. So I don't know if any of those are important to any of you. So I thought, well, sleep, I didn't have a problem getting to sleep. But when I tried a few drops of a CBD product, that it's a deeper sleep. So if you're getting better sleep, what will that do for the rest of your system? So, and our systems are compromised now today because of everything that we have in our environment. And you've heard that from every single company that's out there, that our systems are compromised. So that is why we don't produce enough of the things that we need in our body. So we have things called CB1 and CB2 receptors in our body. The CB1 receptors are actually part of the brain also, brain and central nervous system, and then the nerves and the organs. Well, what's cool about this is, since there are these receptors that are in your brain, not many things cross the blood-brain barrier, but the CBD oil can cross that blood-brain barrier because it's actually the receptors are there.
See, these receptors are part of the endocannabinoid system in our body, but the wonderful thing is the phytocannabinoids are received by them just as easily as the endocannabinoids.
Mm-hmm. So, and then the CB2 receptors, they're to deal with your immune system. So, and you can read all the things that, in your system that they're good for. So, but we've actually been asked to be founders of a company that they are doing cutting edge products. So it's pretty exciting to be in the beginning of that with the cutting edge products. And the chance to be a founder too. So
And I might say that one of the things that attracted me to this is that I'm a hemp purist, and hemp purists are into organic, and they're into full plant, you know, so that you use the whole plant with all the cannabinoids. And in this case, this product that this company represents has removed all the THC, which is fine. It's so political that that's probably the best way to go. But all the other cannabinoids are present, and it's organic.
And not many companies do the third-party testing also. So if you're going to seek out a product, make sure the company has third-party testing and is organic and uses the full plant for the benefit of your entire system. So is there any questions?
What type of research has been done to improve the benefits of CBD oil?
Well, you can go to cbd.org, and there's a lot of research. Israel is doing tremendous research on Alzheimer's and having tremendous success with treating Alzheimer's patients. They sometimes use a combination of CBD and THC because the two have been, evolving together for thousands of years. But there's quite a bit of research, and you can Google that during the efficacy and just the different uses. CBD.org is a really good resource for that.
It is. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
What does it cost if who's going to buy some CBD oil?
It's expensive.
That's a good question.
Good stuff, the good stuff.
And we actually had been using CBD oil before, and we had checked out all different stores around Lincoln. Had a person in Omaha that we were getting CBD oil from, and it ranges. It's a huge range. The range is anywhere from 59, 89, 109, 139. I've seen the whole range.
And generally, the more expensive is a bigger concentration.
That's a good question. So the containers
Couple
come
ounces,
like,
3, 4
so it's
ounces, 2
usually
ounces.
30 servings if you take a full dropper full. And, but like on ours, for instance, this absorbability is so amazing that we're taking like 0.25. So that's a fourth of a dropper full instead. So it makes a difference on the absorbability too of the product and what they have as the carrier. So ours has as a MCT oil as the carrier.
And it's really important if you're going to use CBD, don't buy the more highly concentrated, the more expensive first. Buy the lower concentration and try it. And if it helps, then you don't need. Then if you want a little more help, you might try a little higher. But start low until you find out what your body needs and wants.
Exactly.
Rather than waste your money on the higher stuff that you may not even need.
So this would be an example of what you'd be buying on this picture. Is that right?
Is that a little bottle?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yep. I can't see that.
Yeah, you don't get much.
Yeah.
It's pricey.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like your body produces its own endocannabinoids. Like, what's the risk for, if you're a daily user, especially like addiction or dependency? Would you ever reduce your body naturally producing its own?
From endocannabinoids other than THC.
Yeah.
There's no recorded, I don't know of any recorded literature at all on any addiction other than the THC.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any. Haven't seen any.
Yeah. Same.
You can
I haven't
Google
seen.
that, so.
Yeah.
But if you find some, let me know because I haven't seen any.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See.
I've seen these stores popping up all over Lincoln that sell
Mhm.
CBD oil, and some of them have the little green, cross in the window, like a red cross, but it's green. And how do you know, as a consumer, let's say you're interested in trying this, how do you know which of those are legit, which are sketchy, and that
Right.
sort of stuff?
You gotta do your due diligence.
And I think too, you have to research it, each one, because the list that I gave you before, have they extracted the THC if that's what you want? And have they done the third-party testing? And do they have a money-back guarantee? Our company actually has a 60-day money-back guarantee. I don't know any of them that have that out there. But, and then you can get the product. My husband came home and said, that product is at True Value. So that's, yeah. So
I've heard that food stores can't carry it because it's not approved by the FDA. And
So-
because, you know, the testing isn't there to approve it as a consumable product.
Right.
And those, like the licenses or what the responsibilities of these businesses are different. That's why you see them at, you know, hardware stores and
It's interesting, you raised some interesting issues there. At this point, the FDA has not taken jurisdiction over what we call supplemental CBD. They're in the process of saying they're going to take jurisdiction over medical hemp, okay? Because and that would be hemp that's going to be prescribed by physicians. They are going to take some regulation over that, but they've stated very clearly that they're not going to regulate in any way products like this, like CBD oil, unless
so
it's.
this would fall under USDA. And for the food,
Well, no, well, the FDA is not going to bother with CBD supplements.
right?
They're
Just
just not
like
going to
any-
bother with it.
just
So
like any supplement.
the FDA is part of the USDA. So they're just not going to deal with it for now, and we hope that stays that way. And just, you know, there's two schools of thought there, you know. Let the buyer beware and let the buyer decide what works for him and what doesn't. Or you let the government decide. I tend to go the side of let the buyer beware with good education. We need to educate people, we need research. We need more research, obviously. And so, you know, in time. And then you go with a company that's established, that can show you the results, especially this testing is really important. Because you can buy CBD oil that's got insecticides and pesticides and all sorts of poisons in them. If it's not tested, don't trust it. Because if they're not willing to test,
Right,
you don't want to deal with it. You don't want to touch it.
exactly.
This is going to be a really ignorant question, but you've shown the little bottle that this stuff comes in. You've talked about the cost. And you also mentioned absorbability. Do you take this stuff orally, or do you put it on your skin and it's absorbed? I mean, I'm totally ignorant on the subject.
Well, there's all sorts of different ways to take it.
Okay.
This product that we represent is sublingual, under your tongue. And that's probably the best way to take most of this type of thing with a good carrier oil, is under the tongue, because it's absorbed so quickly into your blood system.
And then do you anticipate, I mean, when I need something because I'm not feeling good, I go to Walgreens or CVS. Is this stuff going to start showing up in Walgreens and CVS, or is it already there?
I don't know if it's in,
There, I think.
is it in Walgreens? It may be, I think it will. Now, the Attorney General of the state of Nebraska, you know, wants people to believe that it's illegal. But there may be a very small percentage of CBD oil that he may have some justification in saying that. I don't agree with him. But there's some indication that if the CBD is obtained from a marijuana plant, for some reason, some people think that ought to be illegal. But the cannabinoid stands on its own. If it's an isolate, you know, an isolate meaning they just took it out of there, you know. I don't see why that would be illegal. It's not THC. But there's some people who feel that way. But you know, CBD that's from, I can say this with certainty, CBD oil that's from industrial hemp product, a plant, is legal in all 50 states, and it's legal in Nebraska. No question about it.
Got time for one more question?
So what are some of the barriers for, you know, small farmers or farmers to get into this? And do you only know Nebraska or, because these laws vary state to state.
I'm very familiar, I've developed, I helped develop the law and I helped develop rules and regulations, the 2015 rules and regulations. And I've researched probably at least 20 of the states, and I've read through their, pored over their laws and their rules and regulations. So I think for the farmer, it's important for Nebraska to get some decent rules and regs. And if they stay with the USDA rules and regs, I think we're going to be okay. If they go too far from those, they can be more restrictive, they can't be less restrictive. That's what the USDA has said. And hopefully it won't be too much more restrictive. I think the other problems that farmers are going to face are markets. And that's just going to take time. In the meantime, if you've got a farmer that's got livestock, he can plant it, chop it up for silage. Animals love hemp silage. I just talked to a guy, he called me yesterday from Colorado, and they're giving he was looking for seed. I said, we don't have any in Nebraska yet, grain, to feed their milk goats for high protein, because it increased their milk production and the quality of the milk. So I thought that was interesting. And so the whole dairy, I thought, well, man, the dairy industry, that wasn't something that was on my radar. So the milk industry is going to be, one of the reasons, by the way, that Nebraska has so much wild hemp, feral hemp, we call it. Back in the day, all the states after World War II, and we grew it all over, right? Hemp for victory, for the government. Then they decided to eradicate it all. But the NRDs in Nebraska went to the state and said, look, we're a pheasant tourist hunting state. This is what our birds eat. We need to leave it alone so we can have pheasants and quail. So they didn't destroy it. So Nebraska has probably more feral hemp than any other state in the country because they didn't eradicate it, because we need to feed our pheasants and quail.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being here today. We appreciate your time. Very interesting. As a thank you, we'd like to present you each with a Focus Suite mug.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
And so,
Awesome.
thank you for being here today. Thank you all for being here. There's no need to rush off. You're welcome to hang around, visit with one another,
we can hang
exchange
around
business
too.
cards, come up and talk to Bill and Donna more if you have more questions.